Hello. Have you ever seen those Charlie Brown cartoons on the TV where Charlie Brown is in the class and the teacher's going, wah, 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 wah? Well, that's how it was for me at school in language classes. They could have told me to wear a t-shirt that said this because I really felt like a language dunce. I just didn't understand anything. I felt stupid, basically. And it was a big problem because I knew I wasn't stupid. In fact, in many things, I was pretty good. I was very good at mathematics and science, for example. And it turns out that there are some things I'm good at and some things I'm just naturally bad at. And to sum it up, I'd say that I'm pretty analytical. I'm very good at looking at a quite complicated problem and analysing where the problem is, pinning it down and solving it. I'm a bit of a geeky person. I like finding problems and solving them. And I like finding the latest ideas on something and so on. I'm not particularly sociable, though. So advice which says join clubs and societies or get out there and speak to strangers, that's no good to me. Practice languages in pairs, that kind of stuff. No, I'm just not interested. And I have a terrible memory. So anything that says, here's a chapter on something, now learn this vocabulary, well, I would be able to study it and cram it and think, okay, I can remember it. And the next day I'd have forgotten it all. And these things are not helpful particularly for the majority of language courses. And this always frustrated me. So what I wanted was a language course that that satisfied the following criteria. It had to work for people like me, people who had brains like that. It had to keep me in control. I didn't want the course to be telling me what order I should learn things in. I didn't want the course to be telling me what I needed to learn next, or to decide that I'd learned enough about some such thing. I wanted to be in control of the whole thing, because I'm the person that knows what I need to learn next, and how much I need to know and what interests me. I want it to be something I can do alone. As I said, I'm not very sociable. I want to be able to just, during my time at home here in my office, spend a couple of hours studying and actually get something from it, actually become a better language learner through it. I want it to make me feel good. I don't want to constantly feel, my God, I'm rubbish at languages. I want to get positive feedback and think, ooh, I'm making real progress here. I'm actually quite good at this. I wanted to build on my very few strengths. So I want the analytical brain that I have and the problem solving and so on to actually be an asset rather than irrelevant. And I wanted to overcome my very many weaknesses. For example, the fact I'm not particularly sociable and the fact that my memory is terrible. I just forget things instantly. And I wanted it to unite and develop all four skills. Now, this is important because the four language skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, well, we all know we need to develop all those four, but I've found that many courses just focus on one or the other. So there are courses that I have on how to read Spanish or how to read French, and they're great books, great courses. But that isn't enough for me because that's all they were talked about. I've got some courses on how to write Chinese, and they're very good, but that's not enough. I want all four things. I've even got courses on how to listen to some particular language where it's got recordings in that language, and that's very good, but it's not enough. And I've got some courses, some particularly popular and famous courses, I won't name them, but that they focus on getting you speaking early. And many people say, wow, I could never speak French or German before, and now I can. But they're misleading because those people, if they listened to that language spoken to somebody else outside the classroom environment, wouldn't understand it. And reading and writing isn't touched in those courses, so that's not satisfactory. Now, of course, you could say buy separate courses for each of these things, but they aren't united in any way. They aren't unified. I wanted something that unified these four skills, and progress in any one would lead to increased ability in any of the others. So they would build on each other. And I never found this. So, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I practice language hacking, which is where I keep studying different techniques of language learning. I've tried dozens of different techniques, and I'm what's sometimes called a reflective practitioner, which is where you're constantly thinking, is what I'm doing now actually effective? Is it working? And if I find it isn't, I reject that method. And if I find it is working, I then actually spend quite a lot of time analysing what is it about that one method that makes that effective? And can I extract that particular aspect from the method, rather than taking the whole method, just the one aspect of it, and fold it into my own approach? And I've found that, having done this with many different courses and methods, I've now got a unified approach that combines all the 4 skills very effectively in a way that makes me a very good language learner. Despite my natural inabilities, I'm now a very effective language learner and can make quite quick progress. So I'm not trying to push this method on anybody. I'm just saying what worked for me. If it works for you, great. If you're already great with languages, it's probably not going to be very helpful. But after much contemplation on whether I should make this video, I thought, well, if it helps anybody, great. So what harm can it do? So oops, sorry. So what I've realized at the heart of my method is that my knowledge of something, my understanding of something goes through 4 stages. And the first is where I'm baffled. As I said, this is where Charlie Brown's teacher's going, wow, wow, wow. Or I'm reading a textbook and I think, I don't know what that's talking about. In the past, I would go, ooh, I'll just ignore that, flip over that chapter and move to the next one and hope that it doesn't matter. And that was a mistake. You need to get through the baffled stage to the understanding stage where you go, oh, at last it's clicked. Now I know what it means. Now I understand that. And in my mathematics and computer science background, that would often be enough. You'd have some complex mathematical problem or some software you're trying to develop. You'd solve the problem. You'd understand what the problem was about and you go, ah, there's the solution. In language learning, you can't stop there. Language learning isn't just problem solving, that's part of it, and you can use your analytical abilities to get very good at this, and my method will show how. But then you need to know it, and that means to both remember it and be able to explain it to somebody else. But that isn't enough, because then when you're talking to somebody, you can't go, now what was the, I remember the rule now, so how will I conjugate that verb, and now what was the word, now how will I decline that noun, and then say it. You can't do that. You have to internalize it. And this goes beyond just knowing something. This means it's part of you, just like your native language is part of you. And getting to this stage is something that doesn't come without effort. All of these involve effort, but I've developed and absorbed techniques that are now unified that take you naturally through all these 4 stages. And what's important is you don't go through all these 4 stages in big lumps. You don't say, okay, now I'm going to get to intermediate level in the language and go through a whole early stage of lots of reading and understanding, and then several months of learning to know something and several months of learning to internalize. No, you pass through all 4 stages very quickly in one small aspect of the language. And I actually call this the spiral method, because this circle, which I'm about to explain, is called an iteration. And each iteration takes you through the 4 levels of understanding in one aspect of the language. So you might want to learn, say, how do fractions work in whatever language you're studying. And you'll go through reading to get you over being baffled. You'll use analytical abilities when you're reading about the topic to really think, okay, now I understand what they're talking about. Okay, but then in order to actually know it very well, you have to play with those concepts in sort of like children play in a sand pit. And this is where I use writing in a way that I'm going to describe in later videos. Once you know it, you can then start to listen to content that uses those concepts. And this helps you start to internalize. And I'm going to say how you can get content to listen to that uses the concepts that you've just been learning. And once you've started to listen to it and got an audio sense for the stuff, you can start to speak. And speaking becomes the second playground where you're juggling with the language but verbally, so that you don't just have rigid phrases you can repeat. You can actually play with the language verbally in a very fluid way, and you get this real internalized sense of understanding it. And once you've done that for one aspect of the language, say fractions or whatever it is you're learning about, You've completed one iteration, and that forms a basis that you feel very comfortable with, so you could talk quite well about fractions, and then you move up to the next circle in the spiral, and then the next circle in the spiral, and keep building up so that you become very fluent in what knowledge you have already, rather than having this end goal of one day I'm fluent in everything. You just focus on one aspect at a time and get this very internalized, very comfortable, very easy juggling kind of fluidy feeling, so that you can effortlessly use certain aspects of the language that you've studied and build up and up and up from there. And this is a method I've been applying for myself for a very, very long time now. And it's only since I started doing this that I had any sense of fluency in Czech at all. So that now I can use certain aspects of Czech effortlessly, just as easily as I can in English. And of course, there are many things I can't talk about because I just haven't got to those high and lofty levels yet. But there are thousands of iterations in the spiral that I've gone through, so that there are many things and many grammatical concepts that I can use effortlessly. And importantly, by the way, each circle in that spiral might take 2 hours, going from knowing nothing about fractions or whatever it is to feeling completely fluent about fractions. It'll only take about 2 hours, perhaps spread over several days, half-an-hour chunks or whatever. It's up to you. And at the heart of my method, the details are going to come in later videos, but the heart of my method is something that I learned more than 20 years ago from a short story by Rudyard Kipling called The Elephant's Child, and it's got in it a poem, and the first few lines of the poem are this: I keep 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when, and how and where and who. And these WH words, as they're sometimes called in linguistics, really, if you can answer all 6 of them, you've got a really deep understanding of something, so there are no nagging doubts about what something is. Whereas if you're just learning in French, the word for fish is poisson. That's told you what, or in Chinese, the way to say how are you is ni hao ma, or the way to say I am, well, 我很好, but so what? Nobody cares just to know the what. It's just like facts in a filing cabinet. You only deeply internalize something when you can answer all 6 questions. Why? And I don't just want to hear because, but I want to know why that's the case, why that's the way you say it, and when would I actually say that, and how, what's the intonation, and where, in what kind of circumstances do I use it, and who says it, and to whom, and all these kind of things. And I found that when I've got a real sense that I can answer those 6 questions very well, something is completely internalized, and I don't have nagging doubts about my understanding. This is all going to come up in later videos in real detail that other people can copy. And if you find it helpful, great. And if you don't, well, thank you for your time anyway.